I had barely stepped through the door of my brother-in-law's house when the heaviness of the room hit me. The air was thick with grief, like you could almost choke on it. I wasn't here to feel anything, though. Not really. I was just here to show face, pay my respects, and get the hell out. Emily's funeral had been enough. I wasn't sure how much more of this I could take. I found a seat in the corner, numb to the soft murmurs around me. People moved slowly, like they were all just waiting for something, anything, to pull them out of the haze of loss. And then Rachel stood up, looking more frantic than usual, her eyes darting around the room as if she wasn't sure where to begin. "I have something to say," she said, voice cracking. It was one of those moments when the room goes silent. No one expected anything dramatic. We were all too broken for that. But Rachel's words hit harder than any of us could have guessed. "Noah's not Todd's," she blurted out. "He's Alex's." The room didn't know how to react. Some heads turned slowly toward me. Others looked to Todd, her husband. Rachel pulled a sheet of paper from her bag, the edges crinkling as she passed it around. "I have the will," she added, voice rising with some mix of urgency and desperation. I felt the blood drain from my face, but I wouldn't show anything. I stayed still, staring at that stupid paper, barely able to keep from laughing at how ridiculous this all was. Emily's will? Really? I tried to keep my composure, but it was like the world around me was moving in slow motion. Rachel wasn't making any sense. I didn't know what she was trying to prove, but I sure as hell knew she was out of her mind. I tried to focus on my breathing, but it was hard to ignore the chaos suddenly bubbling up around me. Rachel had just said the words, and now they were hanging in the air, thick as smoke. The room felt smaller, suffocating. I couldn't process what she'd just dropped on us, but my head was spinning. The truth of it made no sense, but the words kept echoing. Noah's not Todd's, he's Alex's. My thoughts scrambled like broken glass. This couldn't be real. It couldn't be true. But my brain kept circling back to one thing: Rachel's face, her desperate eyes, that damn paper she was waving around. I'd been in shock, nodding along like a robot, trying to pretend I wasn't about to lose my mind right there in front of everyone. But I could feel the heat rise in my chest. Anger, confusion, disbelief. It was all mixing together like I was drowning in it. I barely remembered how I got here. I couldn't even recall the drive over. Just the hum of the car and the steady thud of my heart and that feeling of being somewhere I didn't belong. I was there, but I wasn't really there. Just going through the motions, like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Emily had been gone for what felt like forever, but it still didn't seem real. And now, Rachel was making it worse. I looked around the room, faces frozen in shock. Some people were whispering, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Others were too stunned to move. I couldn't see Todd anywhere. Maybe he'd slipped into the kitchen, or maybe he just didn't know how to react either. I had to breathe. In, out. I could feel my heart in my throat. Grief had a way of twisting itself into everything, making it impossible to separate what was real from what wasn't. My head was throbbing, my hands cold and clammy. This wasn't real, it couldn't be. But then I thought about Rachel again, her pleading eyes. She wasn't making this up for attention. She wasn't a drama queen. It wasn't her style. And Noah, God, Noah, I tried to push the thought away. I couldn't think about him right now. My whole life had been with Emily. We had built this life. Noah was part of that life, yes, but so was everything else. Our house, our future, everything we'd planned together. And now Rachel was dropping this bomb like it was nothing. Like it didn't matter that Emily was dead, that I was trying to piece my life together again. I should have walked out. I should have stood up and left the room. But instead, I sat there, in that chair, pretending I could breathe through it, that I could ignore the pounding in my skull, the twisting in my gut. Rachel's voice cut through my thoughts, and I realized she was talking again. "I'm sorry, Alex," she said, almost whispering. "But you have to understand." I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear anything. But somehow, I found myself nodding. I didn't even know why I was listening, but I couldn't stop myself. Maybe I wanted to hear her out. Maybe I was hoping she'd somehow make this make sense in some way, but it didn't. Nothing made sense. I could feel myself shutting down, bit by bit. My emotions had hit a wall. Grief, confusion, anger, they were all mixing together, a blur of too much. I wanted to ask her why. Why would she do this to me, to Emily, to the family? But the words stuck in my throat. I couldn't find the strength to speak. All I could do was sit there, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I thought I knew about Emily, about us, had been a lie. It didn't help that Rachel's words were still echoing in my head, rattling around like a pinball. Noah's, not Todd's. He's Alex's. I wanted to stop thinking about it, but I couldn't. I kept drifting back to the beginning, how it all started. Emily and me. I was 28 when I met her, a charity fundraiser for a local shelter. I was volunteering, standing behind a table full of flyers when she walked up. She had that quiet confidence, the kind that made you feel like you could trust her instantly. We started talking about the event, and before I knew it, we were talking about everything else. Our conversation just flowed like it had always been there. I remember the way she laughed, genuine, like she wasn't afraid to show the real her. She wasn't looking to impress anyone. She just was. We went out for coffee after that, then dinner, then dates that turned into weekends. It wasn't fast, but it didn't feel slow either. It felt right. 2 years later, we were buying our first house, a small 2-story in the suburbs, just far enough from the city that we could have space but close enough for work. It wasn't anything grand, no marble countertops or sprawling backyard, just a home. The plans we made were simple: build a family, grow old together. We'd joke about what our kids would look like, or where we'd retire one day. The big things were always dreams, but the little things, the everyday stuff, felt just as solid. That was enough for us. Or so I thought. When the fertility issue started, things changed. We tried for months, then years. The treatments were exhausting, both mentally and physically, and each failed round chipped away at the hope we'd been holding on to. Emily was always the one trying to keep it together. I could see her disappointment every time we sat in those doctor's offices, waiting for results that never came. It hurt her, but it hurt me too. I wasn't always good at showing it. I was the kind of guy who just buried things down, but I could see it in her face, and I hated myself for not being able to fix it. I hated that we couldn't give her what she wanted more than anything in the world, a child. We talked about adoption, but it never seemed like the right time. And honestly, after so much disappointment, it felt easier to just step back, to let it go for the moment. So we decided to focus on the parts of our life that weren't so out of our control. Our careers, our friends, just us. We had a good marriage, one built on solid ground. We found a rhythm. We still went on our weekend hikes, shared late-night dinners, and laughed about stupid things. The absence of kids didn't define us. At least, that's what I told myself. But now, sitting here, in the middle of this mess Rachel had just thrown into my face, I wondered how much of it was real. Was any of it real? Could she have known something I didn't? Could Emily have kept something from me all these years? I wanted to scream, to throw something, because everything I thought I understood about my life, about my marriage, now felt like it had been built on quicksand. But Emily, she never gave me a reason to doubt her. We had our struggles, like every couple does, but I never questioned her loyalty. Now, I wasn't sure what to believe. All I had left was this pain, this emptiness that I wasn't sure how to fill. I had to know the truth, but I didn't know where to start, and that scared me more than anything. The longer I sat there, the more the pieces started to come together, slowly, jaggedly, like I was putting together a puzzle with missing edges. It was Rachel. I kept thinking about her, about how she had been around more often, especially in the months after the fertility treatment started failing. She was the free spirit, always showing up uninvited, giving unsolicited advice that no one asked for, like she was some kind of expert on everything. But looking back now, it was more than just annoying. It felt like she was trying to fill a gap I couldn't see at the time. I remember how Emily would always smile when Rachel would drop by, but there was something in her eyes, something she tried to hide. A hesitation, like she wasn't sure how to say, "Please, just leave us alone for once." But she never did. She always tried to keep the peace for the sake of everyone else, especially Rachel. And I never questioned it. I didn't think I needed to. But now I wondered if I'd missed something. I thought about the time Rachel had stayed over for a weekend after one of Emily's failed treatments. Emily had seemed tired, irritable, barely able to keep a smile on her face. But Rachel was as cheerful as ever, bouncing around like nothing was wrong, filling the silence with her forced optimism. I didn't think much of it at the time. Why would I? I was just trying to keep things normal, to keep Emily's spirits up. And then there was that moment a few months before Emily died. We were at a family barbecue, and Rachel had pulled Emily aside to talk. I could see Emily's face when Rachel leaned in. Close, too close. Emily's hand had stiffened, a brief flash of discomfort before she smoothed it out with a forced laugh. I hadn't thought anything of it, just chalked it up to Rachel being Rachel. But now I couldn't shake the thought that maybe, just maybe, there was something more to it. Could Rachel have crossed a line? Had she been too persistent, too manipulative? Was this some twisted attempt to get closer to Emily, to get what she wanted? I couldn't believe I was thinking it, but the more I tried to push it away, the more I couldn't escape it. What if she had tried something? Tried to take something that wasn't hers? My mind spiraled, and the pieces just kept falling into place like a terrible, ugly domino effect. I couldn't stop thinking about Emily, how much she had suffered through those years. Had Rachel been there for her? Or had she been using her, using me, to get something out of the situation? Could this all be connected somehow? Rachel's obsession, the failed treatments, the constant interference. I started to question everything. The way Emily had seemed so worn out, not just from the infertility treatments, but from trying to be strong around people who didn't understand. I remember times when she had pulled away from me, even in the middle of conversations, like she was trying to keep her walls up. Had Rachel seen that? Was she the one who exploited it? And what about Noah? Could he really be mine? The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. But then I remembered Rachel's strange behavior at the funeral, how she kept avoiding eye contact with me when I looked her way. Was she guilty? Was that the sign I had missed all these years? Was there more to this than just a mistake, or had she orchestrated it all? I couldn't answer any of these questions, not yet. But the more I thought about it, the more it felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't undo. Something big, something that had been brewing for far too long. I had to know. And I had to find out what the hell had really happened before I lost everything, before Rachel's games broke me completely. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the scene in my mind. Rachel, that damn Will, her face when she said Noah was mine. I had to be missing something. The whole thing felt wrong, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. The will she showed us looked legitimate, sure, but something about it just didn't sit right with me. The next morning I was up before dawn, my mind already spinning. I couldn't waste time second-guessing anymore. I had to find out if that will was real or if Rachel was pulling some twisted stunt. So I did what I had to do. I called Dave. He's a local attorney, someone I trusted. I've known him for years, and he'd helped me out with other things before. Nothing major, but enough to know he wasn't the type to miss details. I met him at his office just after lunch. It was a small, no-nonsense kind of place, cluttered with legal books, a worn-out desk, and a view of the parking lot. Dave didn't waste time. He took one look at the will and sat back in his chair, rubbing his jaw like he'd seen this kind of thing 1,000 times before. "This doesn't look right, Alex," he said, scanning the pages. "The format's off. There's a discrepancy in the signatures, and these dates, they don't line up with the rest of the records." My heart dropped. I didn't need to be an expert to understand that a fake will was bad news. But hearing it from Dave made it real, like the ground was pulling out from under me. "You're sure?" I asked, my voice tight. I was already thinking a dozen steps ahead. How was I going to confront Rachel with this? What if I was wrong? What if she found a way to cover it up, make it look legit? Dave nodded. "I'm sure. This is a forgery, Alex. It's not something that can hold up in court." I ran a hand over my face, trying to process it. "So, what does that mean? What should I do?" Dave pushed the papers aside and leaned forward, eyes serious. "You need to move fast. If Rachel's trying to pull something like this, you have to be ready to expose it before she gets too comfortable." I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to ask for advice on how to handle Rachel, how to figure out what the hell was going on in her head. But I already knew there were no easy answers. Confronting her was going to be ugly. There was no way around that. "Should I go to the police?" I asked, the weight of the decision settling in my chest. He shook his head. "It's too early for that. You don't have hard evidence yet. You need to tread carefully." He leaned back in his chair. "You've got to be sure about your next move. If Rachel's making a play for something, it's not just about the will. You need to find out what she's really after." I nodded, feeling the pressure of it all. I had a million questions spinning in my head, none of them with answers. Could Rachel really be trying to take Emily's estate, Or was there more to it? And what did she want with Noah? My head felt like it was going to explode. As I walked out of Dave's office, the weight of what I had to do next hit me all over again. I had to confront Rachel, figure out what the hell she was up to. But how? I couldn't just charge in guns blazing, accusing her of lying. She might be a manipulative, reckless mess, but I couldn't take the risk of being wrong. I needed more. I needed her to slip up, to give me something I could use. I thought about calling her, but that felt too easy, too much of a setup. I had to see her face to face. I had to see the truth in her eyes. But I knew one thing for sure. I was running out of time. Whatever Rachel was doing, whatever her plan was, I had to stop it before she tore everything apart, before she tore me apart. I met Rachel the next day at the coffee shop, the one on Main Street where we used to grab breakfast on lazy Saturday mornings. I thought a public place would keep things from getting too out of hand. Maybe it would keep her from lying straight to my face, if she was even capable of it anymore. I got there early and picked a seat by the window. The sunlight streaming in felt wrong somehow, too bright for the mess inside my head. I waited for her to show up, pretending like I wasn't already furious, pretending like I wasn't already thinking about what I was going to say, how I was going to make her admit it. When she walked in, I barely recognized her. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her hair, usually so put together, looked a little wild, like she'd been running her hands through it all morning. She was a mess, but then again, so was I. She didn't say anything when she sat down, just gave me a tight smile. "Hey," she said, voice small. I didn't waste any time. "Rachel, the will. Tell me why you thought you could get away with it," I said, my voice low but sharp. She froze, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her cup, staring down at it like it held the answers. She wasn't looking at me, too scared to meet my eyes. That made the blood in my veins run cold. I wanted her to face me, to look me in the eye while she talked her way out of this mess, but she wouldn't. She just kept looking at her cup, like maybe it could save her from the truth. I didn't think I'd have to explain," she whispered, the words almost lost in the hum of the cafe. But I could hear them. I didn't think I'd have to explain. I clenched my fists under the table. "You're damn right you do." Her eyes finally met mine, and there was a flicker of something there. Fear, guilt, something darker. But it was gone before I could fully register it. Alex, I didn't want to do this. I didn't know what else to do." I leaned forward, narrowing my eyes. "What are you talking about? You faked Emily's will, Rachel. You tried to steal from her, from me, from Noah. What's the real story here?" Her lip trembled, and before I knew it, the tears started falling. Quiet, almost apologetic. She wasn't crying for the mess she'd created. She was crying for herself, like she thought she was somehow the victim here. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, voice breaking. "But Noah, he's my whole world. And after the divorce, after everything went to shit, I didn't know how I was going to take care of him. I didn't have any options. I thought, maybe if I could just get the house, just get some money, he'd be okay. I thought it would all work out." I sat there, staring at her, letting her words hit me like a slap. For a second, all I could feel was that stupid raw ache in my chest, the one I'd been trying to ignore for weeks. I was angry, more angry than I ever thought I could be, but somehow, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to erase the pain of what she was saying. For Noah's future, she was trying to justify it, trying to make me see it as a noble thing. But it wasn't. It was a lie, a betrayal. She thought she could pull something like this off, think I'd just let her manipulate me, let her tear apart everything Emily and I had built. "Rachel," I said, my voice tight, "you don't get to do this. You don't get to drag me into your mess because you're too damn selfish to face the truth. You lied." She flinched at the word, and the tears came harder now, soaking her cheeks. She looked like she was breaking in front of me, but I wasn't sure I cared. "I know," she whispered, barely audible. "I know. I was desperate. I thought if I could just make it work, if I could make Noah's life better, it would all be okay. I didn't know what else to do. I've made so many mistakes, Alex, but this one was for him. For him." I wanted to shout that she was full of shit, that there was no good reason to try to steal someone else's life, to betray everyone around her. But instead, all I could feel was a sick twist in my gut, the echo of Emily's absence hanging over me like a shadow. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to rip her apart for everything she'd done, for the mess she'd made. But as much as I hated what she'd done, the anger was starting to shift into something else, something darker, something that made me realize just how far Rachel had fallen, and how much of it had nothing to do with me. "I don't know what to do with you," I said, my voice quieter now. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a kind of exhaustion. "But I know this. Whatever you thought you were doing, you've made a bigger mess of everything. You've hurt Noah, you've hurt me, and you've hurt yourself." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, but the tears didn't stop. "I'm sorry, Alex. I really am." I didn't know if she meant it, but I knew one thing for sure. The damage had been done, and now I had to figure out how to fix it, or at least stop it from getting any worse. The silence between us stretched out like an eternity. I stared at Rachel, trying to make sense of everything she'd just told me, but the words wouldn't fit together, not the way they should. I was supposed to be angry. Hell, I was angry, but there was something else bubbling up inside me, something that didn't belong, something that made the anger feel hollow. "I didn't expect to get away with it," she said, her voice trembling now, softer, like she was finally cracking under the weight of her own guilt. "I knew I was playing a dangerous game. I didn't think I'd be able to keep it going for long. But I thought if I could secure something for Noah, just a little bit of something for him before everything went to hell, maybe it would be enough. Maybe he wouldn't end up like me." The words hung in the air, each one sinking deeper into my chest. "Like you?" I repeated, barely recognizing my own voice. I wasn't sure I wanted to hear more, but I couldn't stop her. I couldn't make myself walk away. Rachel wiped at her eyes again, her hands shaking. "My life's been a series of mistakes, Alex, big ones. After the divorce, everything just fell apart. I was in debt up to my neck, couldn't keep up with the bills, and I was so damn scared of what would happen to Noah. He deserves better than that, better than what I could give him, so I did what I thought I had to do. I thought if I could just get the house, just get some kind of financial security for him, he'd be okay. I felt like I was listening to someone else's story. This couldn't be Rachel talking. The Rachel I knew had never been this vulnerable, this raw. She was the wild one, always so in control, so sure of herself. But now, there she was, unraveling in front of me, and all I could think about was how much she'd destroyed, how far she'd gone to fix something that wasn't hers to fix. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was still coming. She hesitated for a moment, her breath hitching before she dropped the final bomb. "Alex." She looked at me, really looked at me now, like she was scared of what she had to say. "Noah? Noah's not Todd's. He's yours." The words hit me like a freight train. My body went cold. I could barely breathe. I didn't know if I should laugh or scream or just walk out of there and pretend none of this was real. "No," I whispered, shaking my head as if somehow, if I said it enough, it would all just go away. "No, that's not possible." But Rachel wasn't backing down. "It's true. He's yours, Alex. I don't know how it happened, but it did. We were drunk one night, and I made a mistake. It's my fault. It's always been my fault. But it doesn't change the fact that Noah's your son, not Todd's." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My mind was spinning, and the world around me felt like it was cracking open. All I could see was Noah's face, the way he'd looked at me like I was some kind of stranger, the way he always seemed a little too quiet, a little too far away. How could I have not known? How could I have missed this? My stomach churned, the shame hitting me before anything else. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Rachel continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know what to do. I was so scared of losing him, of everything falling apart. I thought I could fix things, make it better. I never thought it would go this far. I never thought you'd find out this way." I sat there, numb, not sure if I was going to pass out or throw up. I wanted to scream. I wanted to lash out. But all I could feel was this hollow emptiness, this sense of disbelief. She was telling me that my whole life had been a lie. Our whole life had been a lie. "Why didn't you tell me?" The words finally broke free, rough and ragged. "Why didn't you just tell me, Rachel? All this time?" She looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the truth behind the mess. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She wasn't trying to hurt anyone, really. She was just drowning in her own mistakes, her own fear. But the damage had been done. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could save him, Rachel whispered, her eyes pleading for understanding. I never wanted to tear everything apart, but I didn't know what else to do. I thought if I could just get the house, just get something for him, maybe it would all make sense. I was too numb to feel anger anymore. The rage that had been building up inside me for days suddenly didn't matter. There was too much to process, too much to understand. I couldn't bring myself to hate her, not completely. Not when I saw the pain in her eyes, the same kind of pain I felt every day since Emily was gone. But what now? What the hell was I supposed to do with this? I called the family together the next day. It felt like the right thing to do, but also the worst thing. There was no way to undo any of this. I wasn't sure where to start, but I had to tell them. My brother-in-law, my parents, a couple of close relatives. I knew this was going to blow up, but I didn't know just how much. I asked them all to meet at my house, big enough to fit everyone, small enough that no one could hide. The room felt too full, too heavy with anticipation. I couldn't look at anyone for too long. The air felt thick, and my heart was pounding. I had no idea how they were going to react, but I knew one thing. It wasn't going to be pretty. When they finally gathered, the room went quiet, like everyone knew something was wrong, but didn't want to say it. Rachel came in last, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She stood in the corner, clutching her arms around herself like she was trying to hide from the storm that was about to hit. I couldn't waste time. I stood up, my palms sweaty, and I just started. I need to tell you all something about Rachel, about what's been going on. My voice was steady, but I could feel the edge creeping in. They looked at me, confused, not understanding. But I could see the questions in their eyes. I could feel the tension thickening as I spoke. I didn't give them any more time to wonder. This will. The one Rachel showed us. It's fake. I let the words land, and I watched the faces around the room shift. There was a collective gasp. I saw my brother-in-law, Todd, freeze, his face paling like I'd slapped him. But it wasn't just that. It was the way his face crumpled, like the weight of it all had crushed him. He didn't say anything, just looked at Rachel, his eyes wide with disbelief. I didn't need to explain anymore. He could see it in her eyes too, the guilt, the desperation. Rachel flinched, her hand flying to her mouth. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. She forged Emily's will. She thought if she could get the house, she could get some money for Noah's future. But it was all a lie. Everything she's been doing, everything she's been telling us, it's all a lie. There was another beat of silence. Then my dad spoke, his voice low, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. "You're sure about this, Alex?" I nodded, pulling the papers from the folder I'd brought, setting them on the table. I had them looked at by a lawyer. It's not real. Todd's face went from pale to ashen. He was shaking his head, trying to process the words I was saying. I saw his fingers curl into fists, the kind of anger that comes when you feel utterly betrayed, when you realize everything you thought was true has been destroyed. But it wasn't just anger I saw on his face. It was pain, a deep, crushing pain. He had loved Rachel. He had trusted her. Now, everything was in pieces. "I never meant for any of this to happen," Rachel said suddenly, her voice cracking as the tears fell again. She took a step forward, her body trembling. I thought if I could just get something for Noah, something solid before things fell apart. But I didn't expect to get caught. I didn't expect any of this to blow up like it has." My brother-in-law stood up so fast his chair tipped over. He didn't even notice. You lied to me?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the room like a knife. "After everything we've been through together, and you lied?" Rachel's face crumpled. She took another step, but this time, no one moved to comfort her, not even me. "I'm sorry, Todd. I never wanted to hurt you," she sobbed. "I was just so scared. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could fix it. I thought I could make it right for Noah, for all of us." I watched Todd for a moment. He was staring at Rachel, his eyes glassy. I couldn't read his face. Too many emotions were crossing it all at once. And then his gaze turned to me. For a second, I saw something I couldn't place. Betrayal? Anger? But there was a flicker of something else, too. Something softer. Maybe even understanding? But I wasn't sure. "God!" Todd muttered, running a hand over his face. "Why didn't you just tell me? Why didn't you just come to me?" Rachel tried to reach for him, but he stepped back, like he couldn't even stand to be close to her. "I thought if I just got the house," Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible now. "I could make it work for Noah. I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted to protect him." It was hard to watch her, to see her unravel like that. Part of me wanted to be angry, to scream at her for the mess she'd made of everything. But another part of me, one I hated, felt something else, pity. Because in the end, Rachel wasn't some cold-hearted manipulator. She was just a woman who had messed up so badly she didn't know how to climb out. But that didn't change the fact that she'd torn apart everything I knew, my family, my trust, my life. The weight of it all was too much. I couldn't look at her anymore. "I don't know what to do with any of this," I said, my voice strained. "I don't know how to fix it." No one said anything, not yet. We all just sat there, the silence swallowing us whole, as we realized that no one knew how to move forward, not yet. The weeks that followed that meeting were a blur. I thought there would be more fighting, more accusations. But somehow, as a family, we reached a compromise. It wasn't clean, and it wasn't easy, but it was a start. We agreed that Noah's future mattered more than anything else. He was a kid caught in the middle of all this, and no matter how angry I was, I couldn't punish him for what Rachel had done. I told Rachel that I'd support Noah's future. He deserved that much from me, even if she dragged us all through hell. I knew what kind of mother she was, flawed, sure, but she loved him in her own way. And I couldn't turn my back on the kid, but Rachel would have to face the consequences for what she'd done. There was no getting out of that. No one was pressing charges, not yet anyway, but she was going to have to get her life together. Therapy was a non-negotiable, and she needed to find a job. "I'll do it. I'll get help," Rachel promised, her voice low, still ashamed. But she said the words, and that was something. Todd had a harder time processing everything. He kept his distance, lost in his own thoughts, probably trying to reconcile everything in his mind. I could see the hurt in his eyes every time he looked at Rachel. But slowly, even he began to accept that Noah wasn't at fault. We all agreed that Noah needed stability now more than ever, and no matter what Rachel had done, he deserved to feel safe. Over the next few months, things started to settle, slowly. Rachel followed through on her commitments, started therapy, and found a part-time job. Nothing glamorous, but she was trying. For the first time in a long time, she seemed like she was getting her shit together, even if it wasn't in the way I'd hoped. I didn't know if I could forgive her, not completely, but I could respect her attempts. As for me, I found a new rhythm in my life. There were days I didn't know what to do with myself. What kind of man am I now? A widower? A father? I wasn't sure. But each day it got a little easier to breathe, a little easier to face the quiet. I wasn't over Emily, not by a long shot, but I wasn't drowning either. The family dynamic had shifted, but we were trying. We were getting by, one day at a time. I didn't know what the future held, but I'd learned a lot about myself, about forgiveness, about what it really means to be a family. And maybe that was enough for now.